Welcome everyone to another episode of That's Football. First December episode. We're getting close to the end of the year, Josh.
Hey man, first December episode, creeping up on Christmas time. We got an end of the NFL season that we starting to see the stretch run of. We of course have reached the end of the college football regular season, starting to encounter bowl season now. So tide is turning a little bit in the football world. So of course, hell of a time to talk about it here on Tuesdays. You know we talk football on That's Football. So starting a little different this week.
Yep.
Starting a little different this week.
Yeah, unfortunately, when it comes to the news, which one was a little bit more twisted, more shocking? That's in the college football. So
Yeah.
we usually start NFL, but this week we're starting in college.
Starting in the college world with the story that everybody is talking about right now, of course, Deion Sanders deciding to leave Jackson State after 3 seasons, is taking his coaching talents to the University of Colorado. Go give me your thoughts first, because I feel like my answer and my thoughts are just gonna be a little long-winded and multifaceted here.
Yeah, because I already heard you on a different show Sunday about this topic.
Yes. If you didn't see it before, definitely check out the latest episode of High Off the Glass. Also here on the My City, My Music station. Shout out to Oda Gray. Always a great time chatting with him. Gave some of my Deion Sanders tidbits there, but we're going to dive a little bit further.
Oh, yeah, a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. We kind of knew this was probably the next step that Deion was going to do. I kind of knew it was going to happen, but not this quickly.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
And of course, then of all the programs, he would decide to go Colorado in the Pac-12, because let's be clear, the Pac-12 is kind of a little bit getting unstable because USC and UCLA is going to be leaving here soon, so they're going to have to add some new members because I know the American Conference is doing that already after some are skipping to the Big 12.
Right.
It's like, I understand because if I remember the pay structure, was only getting $300,000, but then I think it was like $600,000 and gave half of it back to Jackson State either the first year, or I can't remember his contract.
Yeah, it was some along those lines. He gave like half of his salary back to not only make sure that his coaching staff was getting taken care of, but the facilities at Jackson State, both football and non-football related facilities, could get upgrades and renovations that they needed.
Yes, and he's getting about $5 million a year. Apparently, this is like the highest ever for a Colorado coach, though the athletic director said in some weird statement that they're going to get the money in some weird...
Yeah, it was weirdly worded, but long story short, it didn't sound like they had the money on them when Deion showed up.
Because I know, before he took the Colorado job, it was heavily like University of Southern Florida was rumored that he might have a say of them because they might be getting a new stadium, so they might not be playing in the Tampa Bay State. Like,
yeah, some along that line.
Construction,
yeah.
But even I'm like, why have word on construction when you don't know how long you're going to be there? That made no sense. And who knows? Heck, Florida's getting a lot of college football since, heck, Miami's going to be getting a new one here.
Yeah.
So my thoughts on it is like half of it, like 50, like, yeah, that's the next step, of course, of coach. Like, you do good at a program, then you go to a new one. It's hardly ever rare that we don't have the whole Bobby Bowdens, we don't have the Mac Browns or the stuff like that anymore, that you stay over a decade anymore.
Right.
It's except the last one's probably Nick Saban. That's
Saban's gonna go out on his own terms. I
it's
would
just
hope.
that the way if he would have waited till the end, like, this is like me remembering when you're doing the whole contract thing on the old NCAA game, you signed 4 years, do the whole thing that you were agreed to without any signing any extensions, because that gives the school time.
Yeah.
It's because of, it's more, I know he's getting a lot of heat. Some heat I understand, some heat not really, especially the ones who say that he wasn't HBCU or SWAC in the first place.
Right.
So it's because of what he said that he wanted to bring more to the HBCU. He did, but if he stayed there a lot longer, it would have been more. He actually put his money where his mouth is. The way he's doing it now, no.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's. I mentioned, of course, on Sunday that this is a situation that has some layers to it. First thing, of course, we can't forget that when Deion was accepting the job and new to the job, there was a mention and a focus that was supposed to be around not only uplifting Jackson State, but hoping that this would now become a trickle-down effect to the rest of the HBCUs in the SWAC, CIA, I believe, the other conference. Trying to uplift these programs so that our talented players could realize that going to HBCUs could get them all of the same outcomes that they were looking for, that they were looking for out of Power 5 programs or, some of your mid-major football programs.
Yeah.
Understand that. You can't now leave and go to the same Power 5 conferences you told your players that they didn't need. Now, with that said, here's where we get to some more of these layers. I do understand where Deion is coming from in the sense that, and I want to make sure this message comes across the right way, I can somewhat understand Deion saying, okay, we being black people, and more specifically in his case, black coaches and black athletes, they can't elevate and uplift others just in the spaces of black people. Understand that. I can understand where you're going with that. But again, that's not the message you were selling us on the front end. If Deion was just saying, okay, I was taking another job, totally understand that. But you can't take the job in the way that you just took this one. You told your players not to enter the transfer portal while telling them you're accepting another job elsewhere. A little bit of mixed message in there. Mm-hmm. Do I think he also could have worded it a little bit different to say, in coaching you only elevated or terminated? Which, let's be clear, in college football right now, that's pretty much true. But you can't sit in a room of a bunch of black dudes that you just recruited and tell them that the predominantly white Power 5 school you're going to is elevation. Just saying.
And I'll stop because the way you said elevation.
Yeah, a little bit of a pun. I didn't mean that one. Sorry.
Yeah, and the one thing that bothered me too is, like, after the press conference, he addressed the current roster of Colorado players and basically said that some of them need to go to the transfer.
Hey, look, I really wish I would have told y'all to pull this clip up because.
Oh, I could probably find it.
So look, man. This is a serious situation. I know, especially for most black people. Now, look, I'm just gonna give y'all the quick summation of my thought process here before we get to these jokes, because I'm also here for the jokes. We don't need to be mad at Deion for taking the job. He's gonna go on. He's probably gonna do great things at Colorado. He did great things at Jackson State. I'm sure Jackson State appreciates the time he spent there, whether we think it was short or not. And I'm sure Deion probably appreciates his time at Jackson State. But my man went into Colorado, his first meeting with the players. He walks in. Mind you, this is the same day he has walked off of the field. His team has just won a SWAC championship. And listen to what Deion tells Colorado. Please.
Colorado Buffalo, welcome.
First and foremost, it wouldn't be possible without my man Rick. When I tell you, he is the man, and God called him strategically to reach out to me to make the time. He didn't convince me. He confirmed to me that this was the place. It wasn't about a bag. I got that. It was all about opportunity to do something that hadn't been done in quite some time. And Rick, I'm forever grateful for that opportunity, my man. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you.
Love you too.
For investing in me. I appreciate it. Now let's get to business. You know, at Jackson State, we got out to leave. I'm still gonna believe, because I've been believing ever since I was a shorty. When I told my mother at the age of 7, I was gonna make a lot of money, I was gonna be rich, and she was gonna never have to work another day of her life. And my actions lined up with that belief. And I had to stop believing. And I have a problem when young men with everything in front of them don't believe. That's a problem for me. Tremendous problem. Because you can rescue your mama, you can rescue your father, your friends, your loved ones, their homies, anybody who's looked out for you. You have the ability and the opportunity to do that.
Real quick side note while Deion is talking.
Spirit
This we ain't quite got to the part that I want to get to yet. But
team.
this is also something I
Around
have a
the
slight
school.
problem with. You can't leave your team on the day that y'all win a championship to go do
traditional.
this. Just saying.
In some kind of way, you guys have
Let your kids have their
you've
moment, man.
begun to be complacent with it. And even some of the guys that aren't here that's supposed to be here, those are the ones.
You know,
All that's gonna stop. I still have unfinished business to do with Jackson State, because whatever I start, I'm gonna finish. And we gotta go win this championship. We're gonna do that. But then shortly thereafter, I just want you to know, I'm coming. Not to compete, but to win. Not to show up, but to show out. Not to be amongst the rest, but to be the best. I'm coming. I'm flat out coming. This is real. This ain't no ESPN or this ain't one of the networks you just happen to see me on. I'm right in front of you. You know why? Because I'm coming. I'm coming to restore, to replace, to re-energize some of y'all that are salvageable. I'm not gonna lie, everybody that sit their butt in the seat ain't gonna have a seat when we get back. But I'm coming. I started, and we're gonna go dominate, and we're gonna work. I'm coming to work and not to play. I'm coming to kill it and not to kick it. I'm coming. So you gotta understand, so when I get back, there ain't gonna be no hats and no meetings. There ain't gonna be no hoodies on and no meetings. There ain't gonna be no phones. I wish you would bring a phone in my meeting. There ain't gonna be no earrings in the meeting. Everybody's gonna look like everybody. I'm coming. It's gonna be a different place, a different feel, a different attitude, a different energy, a different work ethic, a different want, a different hunger, a different desire, a different need, a different capacity. It's gonna be a different reach. I'm coming. See, by now you gotta feel it. You can feel what I'm saying. You can feel where I'm coming from. And you know I ain't playing because I ain't got the credentials to back it up. I'm coming. And you're gonna hear me. Because it's gonna be little solid little footsteps that you don't even have to strain. But you're gonna know I'm coming. Just the sake of my voice, the commitment to excellence, that there's not gonna be any more mediocrity, period. I'm coming. Some of y'all that really got it, that really want it, and really deserve it, and you gotta play beside a fool that don't want it, don't deserve it, they don't even love it. I promise you, it's my job to get rid of it. Come. I love everything about this institution. I mean, the academics prevalence, no crime, beautiful city, beautiful stadium. We've never had nothing of sort to work out in, to trade in. Our kids would go absolutely crazy to be in this situation.
What happened to our video here? But
you don't respect it. Okay. You don't want it. Okay. Some of y'all don't even think you deserve it.
well,
I'm coming. And usually when God sends me to a place, he sends me to a place to be a conduit of change. Okay. Uniforms may not even look like they look now. I'm coming. The cleats, I guarantee you it's gonna be something special. I'm coming. We got a few positions already taken care of because I'm bringing my luggage with me. And it's Louis.
hey, we can stop right there. We can stop right there. My man sat here in front of the entire Colorado Buffaloes roster and said certain positions we got taken care of because I brought my luggage with me, and it's Louis.
That's his son that has to work. He said in the previous press conference that this is your quarterback. He has to work for it, but he still said this is.
Well, and not to mention Josh McCown's son is already in the transfer portal, so he saw the writing on the wall.
because right after this was announced, there was probably more recruits, at least a 4-star, 3-star recruit that went into the transfer portal that that decommit from Jackson State, And then there was a few people that decommitted from that. I mixed myself up, man, because of that dang speech.
Yeah.
Man, then some of them went into the transfer portal, though I don't know if they're going to follow Coach Brown.
Well, I mean, of course, we know his sons are going to follow him. There's some rumors that Travis Hunter's probably going to follow him. There's also a tweet circulating that his nephew, who happens to be a running back on the Alabama roster, may also end up in Colorado as well. So, you know, the flip side of this, just strictly football. This is not a bad move for Deion. Again, I think he could have worded the reasons for taking the job a little bit better. He's going to be able to get some players in Colorado, or to go to Colorado, I should say, because of the fact that you're now going to be in a Pac-12 without USC and UCLA. They're going to be a team that can win right away in the Pac-12 without USC and UCLA.
Yeah, though usually the biggest game that Colorado has, I believe they still have, it's that in-state rivalry. Colorado State is always being played at Mile High every year.
Yeah, which, I mean, if they don't, I mean, they can't win that game, then it's a problem.
After USC and UCLA, it's the biggest competition is the one, of course, will get to that who just won the Pac-12 conference, Utah Utes.
Yeah, Utah, and then, of course, Oregon will always have some good players, but at the same time,
they stay, because remember, they could go to the Big Ten.
They could, which would, that's a different conversation for a different time.
Yeah.
But, again, you know, Pac-12, it might go back to the Pac-10. We don't know. What this means for HBCU football before we switch into the, you know, college football playoff news, I would hope that there is somebody out there or multiple people out there who happen to make their way to Jackson State that are just as passionate as Deion was and or appeared to be at times about not only boosting those programs but boosting those students. I hope that there is somebody out there willing to take on that challenge again and also kind of, you know, stay a little bit longer to see the challenge through. But we also have to remember that HBCUs and, you know, in turn HBCU football, there is tradition there. There is a lot of pride that comes from those guys who put on those uniforms. They didn't need top flight talent to be and feel relevant. It's never a problem. Just a little bit of an added bonus, you know, in terms of having Deion, especially, you know, with Jackson State specifically, and how he was able to get some additional notoriety, get some TV deals in place, that type of thing. But all in all, I think Jackson State's going to be just fine. HBCU football is going to be just fine. Deion's probably going to be just fine in Colorado, man. I think this is going to end up being a good for all parties, even though to some people right now, specifically black people, probably don't feel great.
Yeah, though, let's play just a quick second the what-if game here.
Yeah.
What happens if he doesn't succeed at Colorado? That's the thing that...
Well, that's really the biggest question of all this. What we've seen typically in college football is you take the path that Deion is taking now, where you start at smaller school, end up at small-ish Power 5 or like smallish, you know, mid-major school. You do well, and then you elevate to a major Power 5, you know, powerhouse. Usually, when you hit that middle step and you fail, you go back to the level that you came from, or you might go be an assistant on one of the big teams rosters. I don't see Deion wanting to ever go the assistant route, because if he wanted to, he would have done that before he was a head coach.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The real answer there, I honestly don't know, because I think that his personality at some point would be too big to go back to an HBCU, because I feel like so many people are then going to try to use that as like okay, now you want, at one hand you didn't want us, now you want to come back and commit to us again. He's not going to go back to like a small like D2 school or anything like that, like some coaches do. So I don't know. If it don't work out, he might just not coach.
Yeah, the only way I see if he doesn't do well, like if you want to go small, he might go to a JUCO possibly.
Well, yeah, but I think if the reason for him wanting to take the Colorado job is things like facilities and the amount of money they put into the program, he's not going to go back to JUCO after leaving an HBCU because JUCOs are even
crime for Boulder.
Well, and so that was something else that we didn't get a chance to mention. You can't, again, Deion, you can't be the black dude going to predominantly white Boulder, Colorado, and saying things like the facilities are better and the crime is lower when you just left Jackson, Mississippi. Not to mention, we talking about Deion leaving Jackson for another coaching job a lot more than we talked about Brett Favre stealing from Mississippi.
Yeah,
just
though,
saying.
To be fair, here's the thing. As someone that I went to, like, the NAIA type school, there's been some schools, like, even though this is track and all that, I saw D3 schools that outperformed D1 schools in track facility.
Right.
I'll get, like, the Illinois College for D3 right by here. Their indoor facility smoked Kansas out the water.
Yeah. Like, and it's really, a lot of these facilities and stuff is about, one, how good that specific sport is. And the type of money it can bring in, but then also like the desire to want to keep that sport good.
Yeah.
Because if I don't care about my football program, I'm not interested in investing millions of dollars in the facilities.
Yeah.
Because I don't care if they exist anyway. So
one thing I did want to note, because see, if this is mostly on Instagram, the University of Colorado, it's either the university or the football one, because you know how
they try to separate it. Yeah.
Yeah, that one after Coach Deion was announced, that went up about 80,000 followers.
Yeah, so they went up a tremendous amount of followers on social media. Now, again, we saw the same effect with Jackson State, right? Deion's name and Deion's notoriety is going to get eyes on your program. It's going to make your program relevant again, which, if we're being honest, that's the reason Colorado is hiring him. Yeah. He's, again, we being honest, Deion isn't the most qualified coach. He did a hell of a job at Jackson State, but there are technically coaches with more Power 5 experience than Deion that they could have hired. Yeah. But they need the relevance that Deion is going to bring.
Yeah, though, like you and I talked about this, like it's more than likely they're probably going to promote within from his former staff because, heck, like it was announced either his offensive or defensive coordinator, he got it from the same position from Kent State.
Yeah, he got Kent State. I believe their head coach is going to be the offensive coordinator there at Colorado. I could be wrong about that because, again, that's not normal. I don't think it's their head coach. Yeah, but they are getting their offensive coordinator.
Because you and I talked about, like, someone that did well in his interim because he most likely will stay there because that's his alma mater, and that's, course, Cadillac Williams.
Yeah, you know, I would have, especially given that they hired Hugh Freeze, I would have thought Auburn would have just stuck with Cadillac, you know, for the next few years. You got a guy who can relate to a lot of these players he's going to be recruiting, having not only been a former college athlete and former NFL player, but he played for the team that he's now coaching. That brings a little bit of added cachet to the guys that you're going to have to sit across from and talk to. They went the Hugh Freeze route, though. So, I mean, hopefully it works out for them, but I would have liked to see Cadillac get that job.
And also on a local front, it was actually just now former Mizzou D coordinator and head coach Barry Odom got hired as the UNLV coach. That one's hard because you're in Vegas and you got all that betting and all that distractions.
Yeah. Good luck to Coach Odom. That's a tough one. I could not have seen myself doing something like that, but again, to each his own, man. Happy he's got another job, but you know, this is coaching carousel season. We're gonna see a lot of these kind of weird moves that don't seem like they make sense, or don't seem like they are right for one party or the other, but as we see time and time again, some of these end up working out for the better. Sometimes they work out complete opposite of how people expect them to.
Yeah, so let's go down with the breakdown of what happened in college football last weekend.
It was a crazy one.
Unfortunately, some teams did not perform as they were supposed to perform.
No, we had a couple upsets on championship weekend. TCU, of course, got upset by Kansas State. It actually was a really good game. Of course, went to overtime.
Congratulations to the Warner family.
Right.
Yeah, Kurt Warner's son is a wide receiver for Kansas State. His other son's the quarterback for Temple. I don't think they went to the bowl game, but I think they did well this year for Temple. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, because I mean, Temple's not the greatest of football programs in terms of history. So
No, basketball, yes, but
yeah. So TCU took the L to Kansas State, I believe, 31-28 in overtime. Of course, ended up not affecting that playoff standing for them.
Yeah.
They stayed number 3 in that college football playoff ranking. Kansas State did get themselves a nice bowl game out of it. They're going to be going to the Sugar Bowl to play Alabama.
have fun.
Yeah, have fun with a pissed off Alabama team. Now, granted, I say that, and some of those guys probably won't play because they're preparing for the draft, and some of them also might not play because they're going to the portal.
We'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah. So TCU took an L. USC, the big upset against Utah. They had it right there. They had it. It was right there in their hands.
It was a pounding 47-24. The Utes, of course. Utah has always had this history.
Yeah,
of
they ruined
being
the parties.
Underdog. This started with
Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They also beat Alabama in a bowl game.
Yeah, they had, like you said, it's a weird history for them. All of their national moments, they are upsetting some Power 5 team. They pulled it off again against USC. They are going to be going to the Rose Bowl, of course, to play Penn State, which should be a pretty entertaining game. I haven't seen much Penn State, but of course, judging by their record, they should be all right.
We'll do a little breakdown of some of the bowl games, but just to go through because unfortunately most of the bowl games are garbage.
Yeah, most of these matchups aren't that great.
Yeah. 42 it's 41 or 42. That's a bit high.
It's actually 43 because you have to count the college football playoff championship game as number 43. So 42 bowl games in total outside that championship game for the CFP.
Yeah.
Not all of them are very good.
So yeah, the Buffalo Bowl, the bowls of the other Buffalo team in the college one in the MAC conference beat Akron 23-22. The University of San Antonio, that their Conference USA, because they used to be in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I think they moved
They beat the
within
North
the last 2
Texas,
years.
the Green Wave, 48-27. Not surprising.
Right.
Then you got the SEC. Georgia beat LSU. Defense was not in the SEC this week for some reason.
No, Georgia didn't need it though. They look, we feel like we can score with whoever, and they are right.
Yeah, Michigan. Finally back in the whole college playoff picture. Of course, there is some rumblings that Harbaugh could go back to the NFL after this year.
Yeah, he says he's staying put, but again, we've seen coaches lie to us before.
Yeah, so then you got Michigan beating Purdue 43-22. Clemson, this was obvious.
Yeah, beat
North Carolina. If this was basketball, it'd be a completely different story. 39-10. University of Central Florida, shockingly, lost to Tulane. So
Yeah, Tulane
45-28.
with a big win there, man. They got themselves a nice bowl game out of it too.
Yeah, so, oh man, it's interesting. And then Mountain West looks like New Mexico. Actually, it's kind of interesting. You got multiple matchups with these, so it's kind of confusing with the other conferences actually, because you got Fresno State, Boise State, but New Mexico State and. Unless there's some independent games I'm not aware of.
Yeah, it might have been a couple independent games just kind of happening randomly.
So, yeah, Boise State, Fresno beats Boise for the Mountain West. Yeah, so let me get to, because the only college football game this week is, of course, the historic Army and Navy game. Just out of curiosity, what are the odds for this? Because I'm actually quite curious. Because usually
I honestly don't know. I never really know who is technically the better team between the two.
Yeah, so though you always have Go Navy, beat Army, because basically if you haven't seen this game before, it's basically triple option versus triple option.
Yeah, a lot of running the ball.
Yeah, these schools are, even though for some reason NCAA did it in the video game for some odd reason, they don't really recruit. It's usually whoever goes there qualifies because they have high academic standards.
Yeah. To go to the Army or Navy academies, you gotta know some things on and off the field.
And this, of course, has always since a few years ago started been playing just in Philadelphia at the Lincoln Stadium, home of the Eagles.
Yep.
On CBS, $2. Doesn't have any bay lines though. The lowest ticket, it's not surprising, for $179.
Nah,
That's not surprising.
Yeah, it's probably some resale market happening right there.
Yeah, of course. Also this week, we will find out. Let's do that quickly for the Heisman. There's already been a few
Yes.
awards given out already. I know the TCU offensive coordinator won the Broyles Award.
Yeah, so Heisman finalists were also announced this weekend. You have USC's quarterback, and I don't know when the last time this happened, but we've got 4 finalists, all of them quarterbacks. 3 of them will be quarterbacks that play in the college football playoff. So USC quarterback Caleb Williams, the only one of the 4 who will not be in the college football playoff. TCU's quarterback Max Duggan, Georgia's quarterback Stetson Bennett, and then Ohio State's quarterback C.J. Stroud. Not sure how it's gonna play out. Of course, Caleb Williams got a lot of the fanfare and kind of media talking up that comes along with this time of year.
Very good mobility.
Yeah, I mean, and he played lights out down the stretch. Now I don't know, USC not making it to the CFP. I don't know if that's gonna hurt them. I don't think they're gonna give the Heisman to Stetson Bennett. This is not the NFL or NBA MVP where you just kind of reward the quote-unquote best guy on the best team. Because Stetson Bennett is probably not even, top 5 player on his own roster at this point. But, I think for optics, they probably had to have him there. C.J. Stroud, of course, had a hell of a season, didn't play quite as well against Michigan, so that's probably going to kind of turn some voters off. And then TCU's quarterback, be honest, I don't know how much of a shot he has. They might reward him, but I don't see them giving the Heisman to the quarterback that played in the Big 12, given where the Big 12 is now compared to some years ago.
So it's usually Caleb Williams is the favorite, or else we're going to have just a big surprise.
I mean, my gut is telling me that if it's not Caleb Williams, it probably would be C.J. Stroud, just because of if you think in full about the season Ohio State had. But yeah, the only 2 people that I really would be surprised that would be Bennett for Georgia and Duggan for TCU.
Yeah, so we got the bowl with the college playoffs, but locally, because with Mizzou and Illinois, both of them are going bowling this year.
Yep.
Though there was some weird rumor that Mizzou didn't want to play Kansas and blah, 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 and all that stuff. I didn't really believe all that crap. But Mizzou has got a pretty good matchup, I'll say, for the Gasparilla Union Home Mortgage Bowl. It played in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium, so that we mentioned that place twice already.
Yeah,
tonight.
get a nice trip to Florida out of this.
Yeah, Missouri is actually the home team, apparently, and facing the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, where they have a NFL prospect quarterback that probably will be picked in the first round.
Yeah, they got a first round talent apparently.
Unless
at quarterback.
he X's out, because there's always those few.
Yeah,
players.
there's always those few guys who decide to skip their bowl game or skip whatever end of the season games that you have to go and prepare for the draft. We don't know if Wake Forest's quarterback is going to do that. Even if he doesn't, I like Mizzou's chances.
I do.
I mean, I don't think Wake Forest is a powerhouse by any means.
No. Because I'm still confused how the transfer portal works, because he did get, because one of their players, their no one's Dominic Lovett, who was actually voted first team all SEC, which is kind of odd. He went into the portal and he got accepted somewhere, or at least got some offers. Do they still play in the bowl game? Then they transfer?
So I would assume, again, I haven't seen this play out for too many players, but I would assume he's probably not going to play the ball game. Yeah. Because it would suck for any player, whether you have the right reasons for wanting to transfer or not, again, to each his own. But it would probably suck to get injured in your bowl game for a school that you're not going to play for next year, and then that turn out to be an injury that causes you not to be able to play for your new team. That would probably be bad if I was a kid in college.
Yeah, and, well, the bright side is if they don't have Lovett, they get Bannister back, and they were wanting to play that, and Bannister is that kind of Wes Welker and
slot receiver type.
Unfortunately, this is his last year. a lot of, because of what happened with COVID a few years ago, a lot of graduate students have a lot of eligibility because of that, and that's probably going to end here in a year or two.
Yeah, I imagine they'll try to do something to curb that extra year eligibility. But you also, I mean, it sounds crazy, but we are going to be now in year 3 since the start of the pandemic. So naturally, you're going to have some of those guys start to get ready to graduate anyway. So a lot of that might, eliminate itself here after too long. But that is something I think the NCAA has their eye on.
Yeah, the one thing, though, too, Illinois also got in. They, of course, got in a while ago because, let's see, I saw it. Oh, there we go. At the Rila Quest Bowl, never heard of that company.
No, a lot of these companies you've never heard of.
And shockingly, too, in the same stadium as Missouri. It's playing in Raymond James.
Well, I mean, I guess if you think about it, it is December. Yeah. The South is kind of your only option as far as football stadiums go for bowl games.
Hey, Dome Authority, try to get a bowl game. You're getting Mizzou and Memphis back next year. Maybe get some bowls game. We got the Battlehawks coming back, and maybe start doing a bowl game.
I mean, I don't have that much faith in the Dome Authority. They haven't shown me so far that they're too willing to go above and beyond to get some of these events, man.
Yeah, especially though, same thing probably for the Enterprise Center. If you've seen some of the latest marketing for some of the basketball events in this town.
I know, right? Crazy.
So, yeah, they face Mississippi State.
Should be a good game.
Yeah, on January 2nd, 11 a.m. Lowest ticket, $44. That really ain't bad. Especially though the problem is Florida. Even though you don't have that tax or something, it's those Tampa's hotels are probably going to be pretty high.
Oh yeah, especially this time of year. You got what they call us in the Midwest, the snowbirds. They go to
course,
like West Coast.
Tampa's
South.
got some weird things going to hell. The Rays are they're trying to build a new baseball stadium for the Rays for $30,000 as a dome thing for over $2 billion. But good luck with that.
Yeah, we'll see about that one, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
the big ones, of course, because a lot of them, like I could see, like, the good ones that I see a matchup is Notre Dame versus South Carolina for the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville.
You got Clemson and Tennessee in the Orange Bowl, which I wish Tennessee's quarterback didn't get hurt because that could have been a doozy.
Oh, yeah, Tennessee and Clemson, of course. Clemson, one of their quarterbacks that got benched last week entered the transfer portal.
Yeah, he's in the transfer portal. Apparently, he has about 7 or 8 schools that are interested in him.
Now, the
also.
one that's interesting because the Liberty Bowl here in Memphis, nearby here in St. Louis, Kansas versus Arkansas, or Arkansas, as one former Mizzou player put it. So that's actually quite interesting. UCF versus Duke. Sounds like a basketball matchup, to be quite honest.
Well, and I mean, I feel like that's a game you see pretty regularly. I might be wrong about that, but I feel like that's a non-conference matchup that typically happens, at least recently, in college football.
Texas Bowl, makes sense to have a Texas team. Texas Tech versus Ole Miss. Oregon versus North Carolina. That's definitely a basketball matchup.
For sure.
Texas versus Washington. That should be a good one. Oh, Oklahoma versus Florida State. That's definitely a good one.
Oh, yeah.
And that's in Orlando. So to the college playoff here, you got, of course, as you say, TCU 3 versus number 2 Michigan. Number 3 first game for the college playoff. It's strange to me that's on ESPN and not on ABC.
So I think
and it's a Saturday.
Well, I think the thing with that is it's holiday season, and so you got holiday programming that ABC probably has to account for. Now, granted, that's after the turn of the year, so feel how you want about it. But if you think about it, though, college football it's kind of ESPN's thing. So I get it. The championship is always on ESPN, not ABC. So college football is their thing. That they can kind of do what they want with the networking part of it. I think Michigan versus TCU is going to be a hell of a game. I think Michigan's probably going to win. And I'm pretty sure, we didn't have this matchup, I'm sorry. Michigan lost to Georgia last year in the semifinals.
Might get that a national champion.
We might.
But
I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss Ohio State. I know that sounds crazy with the way Georgia has looked, but
because remember that one year back in the late 2000s, it was, of course, a rematch of the game in the national championship.
Yeah, and it ended up kind of going the opposite way of how that national championship went. I would love to see Georgia and Michigan again. I think I'm speaking for a lot of people, and this is no knock to TCU. I don't think too many people are necessarily rooting for TCU to make the national championship game.
No.
Again, it would be a great story if they did, given, we thought that they might not even make the playoff after losing the conference championship game. But we probably want to see Michigan and Georgia. Of course, a Michigan-Ohio State national championship game would be pretty nuts, given that those teams' rivalry is so historic. I don't know that they've ever played for the national championship. We could end up getting a Duke, North Carolina situation like we had in the NCAA tournament this past year, where historic rivals get to play in a meaningful championship environment for the first time. So
you had a few of that with the Bears and the Packers a few years back.
Yeah, playing in NFC championship, things like that. So I would be interested to see if Ohio State can pull off that upset. But Georgia, I mean, they look so far ahead of everybody else that it might just be them stomping their way to a
Georgia
championship.
versus Ohio State at the Peach Bowl.
Yeah.
In Atlanta, and
Which
then
is basically a home game
and
for Georgia.
TCU and Michigan at State Farm Stadium. Glendale changes their dang sponsors a lot more frequently than I thought.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Always.
Interesting, though, with the ticket prices. TCU and Michigan, lowest is $226. Ohio State, Georgia, $367 for the lowest tickets right now.
Yeah, I mean, those tickets are always going to go pretty high.
Yeah.
Now, real quick note on the college football playoff for y'all keeping score at home. We only have 2 more years now of the 4-team format. We are now officially going to a 12-team college football playoff in 2024-25 season, now that the Rose Bowl has signed off on being part of the CFP. So from what I saw earlier, the top 4 teams of those 12 are now each going to have a bye. The remaining 8 are going to play kind of like tournament style, and then, of course, you go from lowest seed to highest in terms of who plays who the following round.
And
so
if I remember correctly, there's automatic conference champ bids, then the rest are at large. I'm just not sure.
Yeah, so it'll be similar to the men's basketball tournament in that way,
does
where
that
winning your
include
conference.
the MAC, the Sun Belt.
So, I think, and this is going to be probably an unintended consequence of this, you're going to see some of these smaller conferences, which there's not many of them left, honestly. Some of these smaller conferences in football, you're going to see some of them make the argument that their conference deserves a college football playoff qualifier. Now, if we are talking about the data from what has been on the field here in previous years, you're probably going to get the argument back from the CFP committee that, no, we don't need to do that. It's probably just going to be SEC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, or whatever number they'll be by then. It's probably just going to be those 4 conferences, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm missing one, obviously, the Power 5, the ACC. You're probably going to get 5, maybe one more conference to get an automatic bid, and then the rest of those are going to be at large.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Then, of course, the national championship we played on Monday night, January 9th at 6:30 p.m., of course, at SoFi.
Yeah.
So that brings in for college this week. Though, one thing I want to add, because this is kind of, because everyone, we are new to the transfer portal. It's just kind of interesting because we do have, apparently, it showed a graph of what was the highest players of what players left their schools in the transfer portal. Number 5, Washington's, tied for 9th. We'll just say tied for 3rd.
For 3rd, yeah.
Washington State, which is kind of surprising, to be quite honest.
Well, surprising in the sense that, you don't hear too many things about Washington State, but I could also see why people wouldn't want to be up in the Northwest like that. So,
yeah. Ole Miss, they
makes sense.
Underperformed a little bit this year.
Yeah.
And competition, because here's the thing, too. some players do think that they're probably not getting a fair shake from either from coaches or something, or they think they could get a better deal somewhere else. But here's the thing I just want to give to, note for future players, and this is someone that I hope maybe sometime in the near future we can get Carl Reed on the show, because he is somebody that, especially with the transfer portal with this, because also some people are kind of worried, how does the transfer portal itself affect high school recruiting?
Well, I mean, if you don't have your offer by a certain time, you can bank on a lot of schools giving the offers that they would have been making to high school recruits to transfers.
Yeah. So just be careful of who's in your guys' ear players, because some of them are either telling you the truth, or they're just like saying this just to lie to you and think you can get a better offer when you actually can't.
Yeah.
Because a lot of players think that they're above the level that they are when they get that hard feeling that they're actually below where they apparently have to go.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wish that wasn't the case, but I don't know. From what we've seen from reports, is that not a lot of people are accepting and all that. Like, the question is, if you go to transfer, can you go back to the team that or?
So I'm not entirely sure. I do believe, like, entering the transfer portal as an athlete does not mean you have filed a transfer or filed like your release from the school that you're at on paper. I don't believe that's how that works. So you probably can go back to your team. It's just I don't know.
It'll be awkward as hell.
It's gonna be awkward as hell, and I don't know that you've done yourself any favors with your coaching staff if you tell them you want to leave for XYZ reasons and then you can't find the school.
And filling out Clemson, I'm kind of not surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, schools like Clemson, Bama, Georgia, they're always gonna have some higher level of guys decide to transfer out because they have so much talent on their roster that not all of the great players can play.
Texas A&M, that is not a surprise at all.
No, especially not given how highly ranked some of their recent recruiting classes have been.
Mizzou actually snagged one of those players, actually, I think.
Yeah, given how high their recruiting classes have been ranked the last couple years.
It was one last year.
Yeah, like there are some guys that are very unhappy on that roster that are looking to go elsewhere, either in the SEC or out.
Virginia Tech.
Probably.
I like that once was a very looked at program at one point in the ACC. It just that.
I mean, I think the ACC has lost its luster a little bit, and I also think Virginia Tech hasn't been the most stable program.
Yeah, Virginia's more stable
Beamer.
than Virginia Tech. That's hard to even say that.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts, man. But that does it for college football, of course.
Before we switch there, let me just do a quick high school thing, because there's not much, because high school is pretty much ended.
Yes, high school football, of course, the season has now concluded. Sure, we got some state championships that we got to recognize here.
Yes. So for Class 3A, the first ever, it's quite surprising. Their first ever. I thought they had more. Cardinal Ritter beating Reed Springs 46-7, first title. And a note for Mizzou is that Marvin Burks Jr., who originally committed to Ole Miss, Drinkwitz somehow flipped him, and now he's going Mizzou, 4-star safety.
Yep, staying at home, man. So
he was actually pretty good. I did see him when they were faced Hillsborough a few weeks back.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Carter Ritter as a whole, they obviously winning the state championship. You got to have some talent. But yeah, definitely talented safety. Look, it's a hell of a flip for Mizzou. And obviously hell of a win for Cardinal Ritter too, 46-7 in the state championship game. I mean, you went up there to make a statement. The statement was definitely made, man. So congratulations to those kids, the coaching staff. Let's see if they can repeat next year.
Then you got Battle of St. Louis schools, actually. So that's at the quintessence. St. Mary's versus St. Dominic, and not a contest. 42-0. St. Mary's win back-to-back state championships.
Back-to-back state championships, both them and CBC, two St. Louis area schools going back-to-back in their respective classes for state championship wins. Of course, we kind of mentioned on the previous show, St. Mary's win is probably a little bit more meaningful given the situation going on with the school as a whole right now. But impressive team, man. We've talked about them week in and week out on this show, and they continue to dominate these other teams. I would love to be able to see them keep that streak going next year and get a three-peat out of it.
Yes,
given how they performed so far the last couple
on
years.
that, there's supposed to be some announcement tomorrow about that.
Okay. So hopefully they can keep the school
so
open,
far,
man.
apparently they need to raise $10 million. That's supposed to last for 4 years. That's actually quite surprising for how big that school is, according to my math. It to be quite clear.
I mean, I guess they must be better at that math than I am.
So they have already raised about $3 million, so that takes care of about
A third,
one and a quarter. So, and then they are negotiating a lease from the Archdiocese, and they have a sponsorship agreement with the Marian S. So, I don't want to go deep down with the whole religion, with all the groups and how you do it, all that stuff, because, dear Lord, you're going to get lost.
Right. Big rabbit hole to go down.
And the final one, another first state championship. Apparently, I was shocked. Francis Howe beat Carthage 35-13.
Surprising that is Francis Howe's first state championship.
I was like, they read it's like first one, first one.
Yeah, I would have thought that they had one before now, but again, congratulations to them on that first state title, man. I know it probably felt special for a lot of the players.
Yeah, so it's good to see. We won't touch high school for a bit for a while until National Signing Day, which is
March or February, late February, I believe.
There's early signing day, then there's regular. It's all weird.
Yeah, it's all crazy. All over
now,
that.
before we switch to NFL and our special guest, go ahead with our.
Oh, yeah. So, of course, if you guys are just joining us here, this is That's Football here on the In the Zone Network, My City, My Music YouTube channel. We are sponsored by the World Bird Sanctuary. Please make sure to check them out here locally if you're in St. Louis. Of course, they have the Harris's Hawks that call the Hawk as part of that Harris Hawks family, but a number of different birds that you can not only get a chance to go in and see, learn about, but can also donate to keep these birds and their respective, I don't want to call it breeds, I don't think that's the name of it, but different birds can kind of grow and keep them whole here and kind of keep them from going extinct. So want to make sure to mention that you can donate at worldbirdsanctuary.com. That is the World Bird Sanctuary, home of Call the Hawk, who at some point we will get here in studio.
Yes, and also be sure to follow us on That's Football S1 on Twitter, That's Football on Facebook, and subscribe to My City, My Music #2 YouTube channel. All sorts of good shows. He was on recently on High Off the Glass last Sunday, and we will actually be guests on a future show of Kick It and the Crew next Saturday.
Yep, I believe December 17th.
Yes. So now, before she won't be coming on, we're going to have special guest who covers, who's part of Fox Sports, Bally Sports. Kelsey Nelson covers the Commanders and a few other things as well. And right now we're going to talk about NFL and interesting NFL week, huh?
Yeah, man. We had a number of crazy outcomes and number of storylines to come out of NFL Week 13. Of course, the football that we just saw most recently, Monday Night Football. Tom Brady, another comeback, man. The Bucs were down 16-3 with 5 minutes and 21 seconds left. Tom Brady orchestrates two drives that ended in touchdowns to win the game there, 17-16. Game-winning touchdown pass to Rachaad White, I believe, with 3 seconds left on the clock. The Bucs avoided a nightmare. If they would have lost last night, they basically would have dropped into a first-place tie with the Atlanta Falcons, while also having the Carolina Panthers and New Orleans Saints, I believe, only being a half game out of first place. Now, of course, 6-6, getting to tighten that grip a little bit on the NFC South. Saints down season continues. As a reminder, the Saints are having this losing season while they owe their first-round pick to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 11-1. Not ideal. If you're New Orleans, just not ideal at all.
And look, I was just shocked. Like, I have Tom Brady as my fantasy quarterback on one of my fantasy teams, and even I was like getting updates, and when I'm watching and looking, I'm like, how is this happening?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a league where I had Rachaad White starting, and needed between Rashad White and the Tampa Bay defense, 12 points. Rashad White, thank you, sir, for catching that game-winning touchdown pass, because without it, I would have lost. So
Yeah.
I owe my week to you.
Yeah, so one thing, like one of the big shockers to me were Broncos and Ravens.
Well, yeah. So I was gonna get into the quarterback injuries a little bit later, but that's probably the most relevant one of them all.
I'll explain why this was shocking to me.
So the Ravens win this game 10-9, which look, the Broncos, we mentioned last week how historically bad that offense is. They actually had Jerry Jeudy return in this game, but then lose Cortland Sutton to an injury. So we'll keep an eye out on that one for him. Big story coming out of this game, though, is Lamar Jackson leaving the game with a knee injury. We found out today that is a sprained PCL. So looking at somewhere between 1 and 3 weeks of missed time. Of course, mentioned right after the game, Jim Harbaugh did, saying that it is not season-ending. So knew that it wasn't extremely serious, but it is going to be an injury that forces him to miss time, which they're 8-4, technically have the lead in the AFC North right now, but you got the Bengals breathing down your neck, who are also 8-4. Not ideal timing for the Ravens to lose Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley, of course, was able to pull out the win against the Broncos, but this is the Broncos we're talking about. So not entirely a difficult task knocking them off. Now, somehow the Broncos have decreased their points per game average with that 9-point game on Sunday. The defense for them still stout. Of course, Ravens got a late touchdown, I believe, like 28 seconds left in that game to be able to pull that one out. So, not ideal timing for the Ravens. They'll have to figure this thing out. They got the Pittsburgh Steelers next week, which, a few weeks ago this probably looked like an easy game, but now they got T.J. Watt back. That defense is starting to look pretty good again, figuring some things out on offense. So I don't know. They could look up, lose a game to the Steelers. I believe they got 2 of their last 5 here in the regular season against Pittsburgh. And I think even another game against the Bengals as well. So a little bit of a tough stretch. Not looking great for Baltimore with that injury news. So other quarterback injury of note from this Sunday, you had Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco leave with was reported to be a broken foot. Initially ruled out for the year. News came out today that it might be something he can return in the playoffs from. They are now turning to 7th-round rookie Brock Purdy out of Iowa State. He is Mr. Irrelevant for this year. He was the last pick in the draft. Not great if you're San Francisco.
Though I do believe they did promote Josh Johnson.
They did sign Josh Johnson, I believe, off of Denver's practice squad, ironically enough. Now, I don't know which quarterback they go with. My guess would be that it's Purdy, at least for this week, given him knowing the offense as opposed to Josh Johnson not. But tough spot for San Francisco. They had a hell of a win on Sunday, beating the Dolphins 33-17. Dolphins offense, kind of came to play early, and then sure enough, the 49ers defense kind of, put the hammer down late. But definitely tough for a team that really has a Super Bowl, contending roster outside of quarterback right now. To lose Jimmy Garoppolo, I know we had our questions and, concerns about whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo could get it done in the moment. Well, we have seen him lead that team to a Super Bowl appearance before, in NFC Championship game last year. So, definitely an absence that is going to be felt, especially when you have a 7th-round rookie stepping in to replace him.
Yeah, that's an interesting deal. And by the way, I was saying what was shocking about that Denver and Ravens game is that somehow Ravens were still able to pull a victory over the Broncos at that whole thing.
Well, I mean, not shocking to me given, I don't know how many games this is now for the Broncos, but yet another game where they haven't scored a touchdown the entire game. So Broncos continue to downhill slide. They got Kansas City coming up next week, which, of course, probably can chalk that up as another L for them. So, and speaking of Kansas City Chiefs, as we wait on Kelsey Nicole Nelson, Bengals beat the Chiefs. It's their third straight win over Kansas City. Regular season win last year, of course, the AFC Championship game last year, and then now this win, 27-24 on Sunday. Their fourth straight win overall. Chiefs went into the fourth quarter up 24-17, did not score. Bengals get an important touchdown and a field goal late to take the lead. Joe Burrow, being Joe Cool, man, with some big plays late in that game, including the throw that kind of put the game on ice, completion of T. Higgins late in that one that I thought he was probably going to get sacked. It looked like they had blew the play dead, and next thing you know, T. Higgins is just snatching the ball out the air and then can take the air out of the sails of the Chiefs. So, Bengals, man, they starting to look like contenders again. I know we were talking Super Bowl hangover for them early in the season also. You know, you have Kansas City established in the AFC. You have the Bills established in the AFC. I think that third best team might be Cincinnati.
So, that was shocking, too, because people didn't think that Kansas City would lose any other game.
Well, and then, again, they were on their way to winning, but Travis Kelsey had to fumble late in the third quarter. They gave Cincinnati some life back after Kansas City had started the second half with a score.
Rated
So,
E for everyone.
you know, definitely not the time for a turnover when Kelsey fumbled the ball. So, you know, Kansas City will be all right. They'll be able to figure some things out after that loss. Again, they got the Broncos next week, so they probably got a pretty easy one on their hands, I think, even though they are going to Denver for that game. But, you know, Patrick Mahomes doesn't too often lose in the division. So I believe that's probably a game they're going to be able to pull out and kind of be able to rebound from this tough loss against Cincinnati.
So, going to the core we'll talk about what happened with the Commanders once Kelsey gets on. Cause,
yeah, we have to talk that tie business with her.
Yeah. So,
Sunday Night Football was what I had teed up next here, which, of course, did not turn out to be much of a game after all. Cowboys put up 54 points on the Indianapolis Colts. 54-19 win. Crazy domination there for them. Scored 33 of those 54 points in the fourth quarter.
And I think we have Kelsey right now. Yep, we do. Admit. Here, hold on just a minute. There we go. Hold on here.
Okay.
All right. Hello, Miss Nelson. How you doing this evening?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Kelsey Nicole Nelson of Bally Sports joining us here on That's Football, an award-winning on-air talent. Kelsey, of course, thank you so much for taking the time out your schedule to join us here this evening. Of course, we were just getting into our NFL talking and now reaching the point of the show to talk about the Commanders. Not the ideal outcome for them on Sunday, but also not the worst case scenario for them as well with that outcome against the Giants, a 20-20 tie in overtime. They get the luxury of seeing the Giants again here after the bye week. What from this game do you think is going to stick with them the most as far as, kind of being a thorn in their side about, hey, we could have probably pulled this game out?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks again for having me, fellas. And I think you described it exactly right. We're not used to ties, especially here in Washington. You know, it's kind of like, are you happy? Are you mad? Like, nobody knew how to feel on Monday. You know, we thought we were getting a victory Monday, and instead we got a tie. So I guess it's just been like mellow moods. But I think, as you said, I think what's going for fans is one, obviously everyone is looking forward to this game. That's why the NFL flexed this game to Sunday night, even though Washington isn't as excited. Coach Rivera is looking at that next game in San Francisco saying, it's going to just be a little bit tougher for my team, especially with San Francisco coming off a shorter week that week. But all that to say, I think when you look at this Giants game, one, obviously these teams will know each other well, and I think this game, it was really a battle. Taylor Heineke played pretty solid, got guys involved. But I think for him getting, I think one thing that got away from Washington in the second half, and that fans were like, going about ground and pound, running the football. Brian Robinson getting off to a hot start, so hopefully they can continue that. And so you don't put as much pressure on Heineke, because let's be honest, the Giants have a good defense. They were able to get to Heineke quite a few times and put that pressure on Washington's offensive line. But then I think, too, if the defense can keep the momentum, that they had, Deron Payne, and I've been singing his praise for the second half the season that we're now in. But he's been playing just great football alongside Jonathan Allen. And oh, by the way, Ron Rivera said he's not rushing Chase Young back, especially with how the defense has been playing, but they might get a lift from him. And you already see how Washington defensive line is playing. So I think that's something else that Washington Commanders have to go on. If the defense can keep playing the momentum that they had, they're there's two things for me on the defense I was a little bit worried about. First, Daniel Jones allowed him to run too much. He got out the pocket. Yeah. Daniel Jones can be a little bit dangerous, right, when he runs out the pocket. He had some solid runs there. The week before, Marcus Mariota as well had some runs. So, have to contain the quarterback, keep him in that pocket. Some missed tackles, can't be sloppy tackling. And then two, the secondary, Christian Holmes got targeted with Benjamin St-Juste out of that ball game. So the secondary, I think it was a question at the beginning of the season. Kendall Fuller is a guy I think that's had a turnaround season, and how much better he's been playing now. But you always have to look at the secondary because the Giants do have receivers. And I know Daniel Jones doesn't have the biggest fans, but he does have an arm, and when necessary, he can put you into danger zones. And the Giants obviously trying to find that momentum back against Washington after some lost games going into this game, in Washington having that momentum. So I think if Taylor Heineke can play a clean game, no interceptions, protect that football, and if the defense can keep that same momentum, I do think Washington, hopefully this time around, will have the upper end and we won't get a loss or a tie, because we definitely can't have another tie, as the tie really already has hurt Washington and Seattle moving into that 7th place in the NFC standings.
Definitely. So, obviously talked about the best case scenario not being the loss there. Now, talk about the difference from this team's vibe and their kind of mojo, so to speak, now compared to where things were at the start of the season. Obviously started the season 1-4 and now firmly in the playoff hunt. What has been, kind of the difference in how that team has carried itself from what you can tell?
Yeah, I think this season has been another one of adversity. Ron Rivera, unfortunately, losing his mother. Obviously that was super tough for the team going through that. But as you mentioned, 1-4. Everybody had counted the Commanders out, bottom of the NFC this week. All of the rest of the NFC East was going to run away with it. And there was Washington. And then lo and behold, I think the turning point, honestly, was that primetime game against the Chicago Bears. But many of you all probably thought that was a snooze fest. Carson Wentz didn't even have 100 yards in that game. But Washington pulled out the win in primetime, and I thought that was huge. And then also after the game, you might remember there was a passionate Ron Rivera who went up to the podium and said, I don't care about the media reports. I was the one that chose Carson Wentz as quarterback and brought him here. So I thought that was probably the most passionate and motivated Ron Rivera I've seen. And I think that's when the team really saw, this coach is for us. He's going to protect us. Let's remember, Washington football team, Ron Rivera had to protect them a lot because of everything going on off the football field, right? I don't have to get into that. You guys have all seen all those headlines. And this is a team that somehow, some way has quieted the noise outside and has focused on football, and has had to get used to, once again, Taylor Heineke being that guy inserted back up. So I think Taylor Heineke has brought a new momentum to this team, and it's not to say, again, Carson Wentz helped to start that momentum, but, he's hungry. I like to call him that blue-collar quarterback. He does whatever is needed to get the job done. He went back to getting more guys involved in the football game. With him back, you see Terry McLaurin being more of a weapon and a threat. They have great chemistry and great friends. And I think, honestly, this team is believing in themselves. Right? They're not just believing in the hype. They're actually believing in themselves. They're believing in their confidence, and they see they have a chance to be competitive and get to the postseason, which is something that seemed very bleak at the beginning of this season. So I think there's a lot there. And then I think you just see this team really developing its own identity, which has been really fun to watch. Young guys getting involved, young guys being playmakers and stepping up. Jamin Davis, look at the step up that he's had. Yep. And just the transgression that he's had. He's, somebody that fans went from saying, oh my gosh, to, this, yes, Jamin, give it to us again, which has been fun to watch. I mentioned Kendall Fuller and his turnaround, Curtis Samuel and just the threat that he's been. And of course, Brian Robinson, I think also, I talked about adversity. Brian Robinson's story, and actually knowing exactly where Brian Robinson got shot in D.C., unfortunately knowing how gun violence has been in the city, but the fact that he was able to not only come back, but now come back and have a 100-yard game before, have close to that this game, it's been so inspiring. How can you not be inspired when your teammate did all he did to get back to this football field? So again, I think they're really playing for each other. And I think just these personal stories, Ron Rivera being emotional and personal, and after that Chicago win, saying after the Eagles win. And remember, this was a team that gave the Eagles that one loss after that Eagles win, saying his mother would be so proud of him This team is overcoming adversity and I think turning it into just momentum onto the football field and truly fighting for everything they have. And I'd say just one more thing. You see how this team has been able to do in the fourth quarter under Taylor Heineke? This is a team that can give it to you in the fourth quarter and play from behind when necessary. I think that's also been a big game changer and momentum swing for this Washington Commanders team.
Yeah, and so, you hit on that, like, poise and the belief late in games, which obviously you're going to need that come playoff time. Now, they got a little bit of a tough stretch here to end the season.
They do.
Home games, though, in 3 out of the 4, which you would prefer to have it that way than the other way around. But you've got the Giants again. We got a road game against the 49ers, home for the Cleveland Browns, and then ending it at home against that division rival, Cowboys. Is there something that can be taken away from them? Obviously, they've got to win the majority of those to stay in that playoff spot. But what can they take from these games and take with them into the playoffs that can make them a dangerous team?
Well, let me tell you, I think when you look at the end of the schedule, you're looking at it much differently because for one, now you feel that you can be the Giants, right, the second time around. This Giants team started off hot, but they started to cool down. Saquon Barkley did get his groove back this past game against Washington, but before that, he had kind of hit, a little hole in his game, and he had started off strong. So you feel like you can beat the Giants. As you said, you have them at home now, and I best believe, I know FedEx Field hasn't been selling out all the games, but that game is going to be packed.
Of course.
Because you have the fans back into this team. And I think especially after the unfortunate flip with the whole Sean Taylor statue memorial situation. And I won't get into that, but fans now I think are once again saying, all right, let me give this team a chance because they're getting it done on the football field. I think you're going to have a full game, lots of fans at that game from Washington. That's going to be a momentum swing. And then you talked about it. The 49ers now, much different team, right? With Jimmy G's obviously out 7 to 8 weeks. And that's not to doubt, third string quarterback. But all that to say, you feel better because Washington has a great defense. So San Francisco 49ers defense is still there, folks. So I'm not taking that away. But offensive-wise, you feel like you can obviously put some pressure on him and do a different scheme. This was a game that at the beginning of the season, everybody thought because of how San Francisco was playing, that would be a big L. That's changed the quarterback situation. And then, as you mentioned, the Browns. Now, we know, Deshaun Watson had come back. He had to get into a groove. He kind of struggled at the beginning of that game against the Houston Texans. And so I think he's still going to struggle, to get into a groove. And let's just be honest, Deshaun Watson, everywhere he plays, he's going to have some negative fans.
Oh, yeah.
You have to see if he's able to quiet out the noise. But I think still that game is winnable. I mean, Cleveland, the biggest thing you have to watch out for is, to me, what they've been obviously very well to do is their run game, and Washington's defense, I think that will be a test for them. But Deshaun Watson, again, I think it's hard to just kind of be inserted back middle of the season. You have all this stuff looming over your head. You have a lot on your mind. So I think that's a winnable game for Washington. As you said, they need to win. And I think the toughest test will be that Cowboys game. But something people have been talking about in Washington, will the Cowboys be resting some of their starters that game? Right? So that it might be a different game. The Cowboys are playing good, but the Cowboys can still be tested. It matters, will Dak have a clean game? Do you target Diggs? There's just so many questions about will their run game get going with Pollard and Zeke? You just don't know. But again, I think will the Cowboys take the game as seriously as they prepare for the postseason with how they've played as of late? And by the way, Commanders, do not let Dallas have a fourth quarter like Indianapolis. That's how you do it.
We were just mentioning that game, and that is definitely a sore spot for any team to give up 33 points in one quarter, let alone the fourth quarter.
Embarrassing. So don't do that.
Yeah.
And shockingly, this week was a lot of late comebacks because, of course, I'm still shocked the Ravens were still able to beat the Broncos after Lamar Jackson.
Was crazy.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Yeah, Tyler Huntley saved the day. And that's a game, honestly, the Ravens should have lost, right? They weren't able to get anything going. And the Ravens have honestly been a team that has struggled in the fourth quarter. They've struggled in the red zone, but they were able to get it done. So just when Broncos fans were finally about to get a glimpse, they'll probably start blasting some Sierra, the Ravens spoiled that dream. So it was tough for the Broncos. That was a winnable game for them.
Yeah, of course, I wouldn't be surprised at the new ownership of the Broncos. Of course, one of them is, Minority Order Condoleezza Rice put her foot down because, dear Lord, I think they expected this.
No, probably not. Feeling like they bought a lemon at this point. Yeah. But now we talked about, of course, Washington and their chances for the playoffs. Now, looking at the NFC as a whole, does not look like quite the same daunting field that it probably looked like a few weeks ago, right? So obviously this Washington team has beat Philly. We talked about San Francisco now being down to the third string quarterback. Dallas, of course, they look great, but this is also the Cowboys we're talking about. We've seen their shortcomings in the playoffs before.
Right.
You have a Bucks team that is struggling.
Lord.
How scary of a team can Washington be, given the matchups that they might face? These are probably going to be teams that they've seen already this season.
Yeah, Washington to me, to put it in layman terms, Washington to me was like kind of the runt of the bunch at the beginning of the season. The one kid that everybody was bullying, making fun of because they just didn't think they were going to make it. And then all of a sudden, the kid comes back to school. He's buff, he's bigger, and everybody wants to be around them. And I feel like that's what Washington has done now. Everyone's starting to, to look at them side eye and start to look at Washington and actually give them a chance. And that's the person you don't want to mess with, right? When they're starting to hit their momentum and start to fill themselves. And I think that's why Washington can be dangerous. Now, again, Taylor Heineke, loves the guy, but he also has his liabilities, right?
Yep.
I mean, throwing the football, he makes some dangerous passes sometimes, where fans are just like, oh my gosh, and his arm strength, I think, has been a question as well. But by the way, did you guys see that 4th and 4 to Curtis Samuel? Oh my gosh, that was beautiful.
Hell of a play.
Beautiful. It was hell of a play. So it was beautiful to see. But I think, Washington is going to be that scary, dangerous team. And remember, this is a Taylor Heineke that really got introduced to the world when he gave it to Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Yep.
Prior,
years ago.
if you guys remember that. So best believe he's more confident now in himself. He knows the number that's been dialed. And I think when you're an underdog like Taylor Heineke, always having to prove yourself, I think you just have a different hunger. And I think the guys see that. Oh, and they also like the Jordans. He's buying them, by the way, as well.
I'd be pretty excited to play for that too.
Yeah.
So saying all that to say that, you look at the other teams, as you mentioned, the Cowboys, I think that they have their highs, they have their lows, but they look good, but it was against the Colts. I'm sorry, it was against the Colts. Yeah. Jeff Saturday and company still learning what needs to be done. I think the Eagles are probably the most dangerous team, though, right now, because Jalen Hurts is awesome. I don't think he's getting enough credit. He's playing some great, solid football. They have the receivers, they have the run game, and they have the defense. Now, give Washington props for beating them in primetime, but that was a great game. I think the Eagles are obviously dangerous. The Vikings, I don't know, as someone who's covered Kirk Cousins, I see what he's doing, but I just still can't be a full believer. Kirk, you still got to prove it to me. I still think you're going to get in the money in the scheme. But receiver-wise, obviously, dangerous team. But, I think their defense can be tested. The 49ers, again, much different team that you're looking at. The Giants, I think, a different team that you're looking at than started this season. So I think, the NFC is still up to, still a question mark. We talked about fourth quarters. Brady and company were able to get it done against the Saints. But, Tom Brady, he's different this season, right? But Tom Brady in the playoffs, you still probably are going to be a bit scared of because he is still Tom Brady. But I think the NFC, I think it's open at this point. Other than, the Eagles are probably the only team I'd say is a for sure lock. I think the Cowboys schedule too might give them something as well. But all other teams in the NFC, I think, I don't think you can completely be sold on. I know Minnesota fans might come for me. But, we still got to see. We still got to see.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Kirk Cousins probably confirmed and or reconfirmed our beliefs about him with that 40-3 loss against the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah,
so.
that was bad. And better believe Washington fans, like, we've seen this before.
Right, we've seen this movie a bunch of times.
We tried to tell y'all. So I can't fully believe. I'm sorry, Vikings. Again, I think they're a solid team, but do I have them going all the way? Because for me, the biggest question mark in the NFC, I should say, biggest surprise was Green Bay. I knew they would be different, with these wide receivers, but I don't know if anybody thought we'd be here, right, with the Green Bay Packers. Like, folks have them as their Super Bowl pick. And look at what we have now. I think they've been, a huge question. I think the rest of the NFC you probably could put, where they are. Well, maybe the Cardinals. I'd be surprised. I mean, what do people think about the Cardinals?
Well, I'll be honest. I was kind of down on the Cardinals coming into the season. They had a hell of a start to the season last year, but of course we saw down the stretch that started to wane a little bit. I am with you though. The Packers was kind of the bigger surprise. I do.
The Bears this was their year to finally be shut out the Packers in the season for how many years? Because I know Bears fans been wanting that for years now.
And the Packers, of course, crushed their hopes as always. But ironically enough, it was against the Commanders where we kind of found out that they might be frauds. So they would have won to kind of. To bring it to light.
And that was a momentum swing. When you can beat Green Bay, I mean, I don't care what Green Bay you're getting. Like, Green Bay, what are they? I mean, Green Bay, I think this year they became, the winningest franchise, right? They're one more right now than the Bears. That's huge. I mean, that's huge. So again, Washington has had these momentum swing wins. And I think when people started to take Washington more seriously, I know people were boo-hoo-hooing about the refereeing, but it was when they beat the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, in primetime. And to be honest, that game, the refereeing went both ways. I think that was
Right.
So stop it. But I think that's when Washington, and then again, I think Taylor Heineke, there's nothing scarier than a guy that you can't fully figure out. No one's been able to fully figure him out. It might not be the prettiest way that he wins, but he gets it done. He might not be the biggest, but he gets it done. I think when you have somebody with a question mark, it's hard to prepare for them. He's able to get it done in the pocket, but he's also able to be mobile and move out the pocket. He's a guy that will scramble for yards when needed. He's not afraid to take hits, probably much to the dismay of coach sometimes. But that's why he's hard to figure out. And then again, and Washington has an offense, and he's getting all these guys involved. And for me, even, with Doxson coming back, and then being able to hit the groove that he did in the last game, I think, and really being a difference maker. You have these young guys stepping up to the task and hold. When Terry is going to get some extra attention, Terry McLaurin on the football field, it's an exciting time for Washington. Again, in the run game going like it is. So I think Washington, again, they can play clean football. If Taylor Heineke can play mistake-free football, this is a team that I don't think anybody's going to fully have figured out, which means, again, that they're going to be dangerous potentially in the playoffs.
Now, we talked up Taylor Heineke quite a bit.
Yeah, we are still surprised somehow he wasn't the starter for the St. Louis Battlehawks here in the XFL 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
So
now,
the one thing that we do ask, because within the NFC, probably the most surprising here, even though we're in St. Louis, the Rams left, yada yada, is this probably the worst performance of a Super Bowl hangover from a defending champion ever? Probably.
Yeah. And because people had them going back, right? Like, I mean, we thought, it would be a repeat. And I think that was the biggest surprise. And then adding insult to injury, when you sign, no offense, Baker, but when you sign Baker Mayfield, I don't know. I think everyone's like, what's going on? Like, have you reached a new, low of lows? Like, and yes, I think the Rams, you have to scratch your head because, again, I think we thought we'd see more of what we saw last season, but they've just been a big question mark and obviously have been struggling to figure it out. Again, another team, high expectations from lots of folks. People thought they could get it done again. And then lo and behold, we're not even talking about them. Because what is there to talk about?
Nothing. Nothing at
Other
all.
than struggles.
Yeah.
Other than struggles.
Just
right?
downhill. Downhill the rest of the way.
And the thing is, too, is they don't own their first-round pick, which is number 3. It's owned by the Detroit Lions, which actually Detroit Lions look like they might actually be a threat in the years to come.
they actually.
That's another shocking thing for the near future.
Kind of crazy when they have a better record than the Rams.
I mean, think of the Lions have a better record.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought we would have been there?
With their former quarterback, too.
Right. So talk about life coming
full circle. Life comes at you
fast.
Life
and they're
comes
at the bottom of the division. I mean, anybody say, who had them at the bottom, at the absolute bottom? I don't care. Nobody. Had the Rams at the bottom.
Not a chance.
Nobody.
Yeah, my co-host John's like, we don't we're expecting that Klingsbury could get fired after this year, but who knows? We already were right about Matt Rule getting fired, and
I think you have Matt Rule getting fired. I think Cliff Kingsbury is probably going to be on his way out, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sean McVay retired.
Stratford might retire.
Yeah, you might be looking at a mass exodus for everybody that's relevant on the Rams, except for Cooper Kupp, which not sure how much relevance you're gonna get out of that situation if it's just him. So,
but luckily for Matt Rule, at least he had a happy ending
right
after his departure.
Wynn got his money back from Nebraska, so let's see what kind of job he can do now. Really quickly, of course, just one last question I wanted to hit on here with the Commanders. We talked up Taylor Heineke. Does this end of the season have any referendum on him as the potential long-term, or I guess the, kind of permanent solution at quarterback, or is this still kind of one of those things where Washington's going to be entering the offseason looking for an upgrade?
Ooh, you hit a sensitive subject here in Washington. We've been through a lot of quarterbacks in Washington. We've been dating a lot of quarterbacks, but we're trying to find one to finally marry. It's like every time we get married, something happens to them, and we're right back at the altar with quarterbacks. So I say that to say, again, Washington went through, obviously, we thought Carson Wentz was going to be the guy this year. And many of us thought this was Carson Wentz's chance, his last chance to prove that he could be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Lo and behold, playing the Chicago Bears, fractured that finger. Taylor Heineke's number is dialed back up. Now, why wasn't Taylor Heineke the guy before? Well, because we've seen Taylor Heineke, and he's been solid, but he hasn't been, I think, that special kind of quarterback that Washington's looking for, especially when you're looking at a league right now that's being dominated by quarterbacks. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he's Patrick Mahomes, old Tom Brady, vintage Tom Brady is Tom Brady. But, Tom Brady is still Tom Brady. Josh Allen and what he's been able to do. I know Lamar Jackson's hurt, but, we're dominated by all these quarterback headlines that Jalen Hurts has been able to do. Taylor Heineke doesn't have maybe all those flashy things that the other guys can do, but he gets the job done. But I still think Washington is looking for that quarterback of the future. And I think what's really interesting is the guy sitting behind Taylor Heineke, Sam Howell, who I think has had support from the fans and a good preseason. But obviously, I think Washington knows he needs to continue to learn his role. But I said this, I think Taylor Heineke will still remain in Washington. He's a valuable asset. To me, Taylor Heineke is that good compliment, much like Baltimore has in Tyler Huntley, and he complements Lamar Jackson's playing style really well. And if I'm Baltimore, I'm doing everything I can to keep Tyler there because he's a great guy to have as that backup quarterback. I think that's what Washington wants to do with Taylor Heineke because they know, he can be that guy. Now, the scary thing is, though, when he's on this big display stage, everybody's watching him. But I still don't think Taylor Heineke will be, that quarterback of the future for Washington just because, again, we're living in the league right now. We're living in a world right now where quarterback play. I mean, look at what we're watching right now in college football. And it's not to say we're going to go draft a guy out of college, but quarterbacks are getting better and better, right? They're coming out of college, out of school. They're dynamic. And it's going to, I think, be harder for him. But I think he's playing like he wants it. And, I do think Ron Rivera is a show-me type of guy. And Ron Rivera has said now, Carson Wentz went back activated. He will be the backup. But I still don't know if this fan base will be fully sold on Taylor Heineke being the quarterback, especially when this is a fan base that's had good quarterbacks, right? I mean, RG3 was electric and dynamic, before his injury. Joe Theismann is always tweeting out about games, but I mean, it's just as much as you love Taylor Heineke, so you can't put him up there with the top quarterbacks, but I do think he's doing everything he can to fight for that right and spot to show, that he can be that guy. But, sometimes you can do all you can, but, is it enough? And I think that's going to be the question for Taylor Heineke, especially with a lot of these, Washington's had a lot of good close wins. I think, if he's somehow able to, just do some dynamic things, which I haven't been able to see yet, but he's done some good things. Maybe he could make a vouch for. But again, I just think it's hard right now with the league that is. And, we talked about the NFC and look at even the quarterbacks, in the NFC. I mean, it's just hard, I think, to, be that starting job. He's going to have some competition for it. But again, I do think he's going to be that close second in Washington. And the fans love him. I also said the fans love Taylor Heineke. They want him in Washington. So I think, again, just having that support, they'll find a way to just keep him in some type of system here.
Yeah, Heineke had a very good character when he was in St. Louis, even though as the backup, if you seen those Bud Light seltzer vids back in 2020 with the XFL.
Yeah.
Favorite.
Of course, one thing too, because unfortunately your team, the Commanders, are in this situation because they're going to be up for sale for soon, and I know a lot of fans are finally get rid of the Snyder. The whole situation's not the right word I would describe, but that's like the least way to describe this here. Because I know they're like, is there any rumors like any potential bidders for the franchise or what are the fans spending from probably from the finally new ownership of the Commanders here?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've been on social media, you've seen the hashtag Fire Dan Snyder trending for years. So it's like, this is nothing new. You've also probably saw before with Bruce Allen when he was here, like Washington fans have no issue or problem making their voices and concerns heard. And, Dan Snyder is probably one of the most, if not the most unpopular person here in the DMV area. And you guys, everybody should know this
feeling with Stan Kroenke, so we get it.
And it's just true, right? And I mean, you can see why. I don't need to go over everything. It's been really unfortunate, just bad things that have happened, at the top level, and not what you want to see from leadership. So all that to say, I think, fans have been wanting for a long time, new ownership. There was a GoFundMe page out. Fans are just trying to find any way possible to take this team, back. But now I think for the first time, fans actually feel like there could be some momentum in its swing. I think Jim Irsay's comments kind of started to change momentum. When we had another NFL owner actually talk out about an NFL owner, because we know so for long, it was the good old boys club, and everybody was kind of protected. So I think that was something that kind of turned. And then, when we see this, when you have the DC Attorney General calling you out, and you have the Congressional Oversight Committee, I mean, it's like literally federal, local, everyone's pouring in on this team. And all of a sudden, I think finally Washington fans for the first time like, oh my gosh, this could actually be real. And then we actually hear somebody like Jeff Bezos who can actually put the check down because it's expensive. Like right now, Washington would be the most expensive. This would be the biggest sale. We talked about the Broncos. They would beat the Broncos out for the biggest sale yet to happen in the NFL franchise. So Jeff Bezos actually having the money to do that, you know, knowing Amazon's growing presence here in the DMV area, they have a huge base now in Crystal City. And then just knowing the team is trying to build a future stadium, you know, Virginia most likely going to be the home of that, you know, kind of the timing of everything. So I do feel like Washington fans finally feel like there might be change coming. And that's been a joyous feeling for folks. I mean, I feel like now fans are finally going out and buying the Commanders gear and stuff. Like, you know, I'm actually going to, you know, support this team because, you know, I see a bright future. Because don't think that, you know, the Snyders and what's been happening, you know, hasn't been a distraction. You know, I mean, from the just the treatment of women, the mistreatment of women, to how the cheerleading team, you know, was fired. I mean, there's just been multiple things adding up. And then the season ticket, the money that was, you know, allegedly taken from season ticket holders, the raffle. I mean, there's just so many things piling up. And, you know, fans can't just say they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I should say, you know, fans have been excited to seeing these different people, you know, Byron Allen, you know, potential people who might actually have a chance to get this team. And I think that's also been exciting. And, you know, I think that just the mishandling, and I don't know if that's the right word, the Sean Taylor memorial tribute, I think that might have been the nail in the coffin. It's like, because especially after last season, when Jackson Mahomes messed up that tribute, you know, by dancing on the logo for the TikTok video, and then this year you get more fans, you get more fans to buy tickets to this game because, you know, they're thinking they're honoring Sean Taylor, they're thinking they're going to take a picture with something they want to post on social media, and then they see what they got. I think it puts a big question mark, and I think fans are saying, and then he's not even there for it. Yeah. And last season, when he was there for it, he was wearing a sweatshirt. Like, I mean, do you not get it? Like, that's what they're saying. They're saying, like, do you really not understand why we're frustrated and mad? And the only thing that's really kept the team going is their field play. And thank gosh, you know, Ron Rivera has handled that. But yes, I feel like with this potential sale, it's gotten a lot of people excited, a lot of people talking, and fans finally feeling like this is the first time that they feel like this could actually take place. And many fans have put a countdown clock on, and you know they're waiting for this.
Countdown to March, not March Madness, but something else.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other rumors with that, because Bezos, of course, we know probably is going to get, but then, because now they're starting a new wave apart with the ownership, because now I think there's rumor that Jay-Z might join that group with Bezos and also Matthew McConaughey, because like I said with the Broncos, the main owner, of course, is part of the Walton family, Stan Kroenke's brother-in-law, and Condoleezza Rice. And believe it or not, there's rumors there could probably be other teams for sale in the near future. The Saints has been heavily rumored with the female owner there wanting to get out of it. And then I'm not even going to start with the family drama that's happening with the Spanos family with the Chargers. That looks like that might be for sale because now it looks like because a lot of these owners, you know, like, you know, we have the Bidwells for the Cardinals. That's probably not going to be for sale. So now we're going to probably get a new group of generation and also different type of class or location, if you will, with these new owners. And now that's probably going to change a lot of things here in the NFL in the near future.
Yeah, I think that's what fans are excited about because for so long, NFL ownership seemed unattainable, right? Untouchable. Like it was always going to kind of be the same old, same old. And you talked about it with this new kind of breath of fresh air and what we saw what the Broncos did, you know, the ownership group actually adding diversity to that. I think that's huge because I think the NFL is entering kind of this new age. And I think people are saying it's not just enough to see diversity on the football field. It needs to go up the ranks, you know, and let's not get into it. And then, you know, if we get into the issue of coaching and diversity there too, many people believe if you change that ownership, then you also give more opportunity for there to be more diversity in head coaching hiring, right? So, and then, you know, even the Super Bowl halftime show, like there's just so much more I think that people can see happening to the NFL in a positive way, how the NFL treats issues of social justice and issues happening in the community. I feel like there's an excitement right now, you know, happening around the league. And I think the league is just going to have to start to embrace that. But it's an era I don't know if people thought we would get to. But as you said, I think you're looking at all these potential sales, all the money that's going to cross hands. And I do think, again, we're entering a new day, an era, an age in the National Football League. But I do think it's for the positive because, again, I do think you're going to see more representation in these ownership groups, which I think is going to be really important. My question, though, with the Jeff Bezos thing here in Washington is just how do you treat that if he's able to get the team and what Amazon has done with Thursday Night Football? Like, I'm just very curious, you know, about kind of the legalities of that. I think that would be a question mark, right? If the owner if the owner has Thursday night football.
Yeah, that is a different
Hopefully.
dynamic because, of course, there are no other owners right now that have anything to do with like the media space. So that does
Right.
start to pose a
It
bit
makes
of
it
an interesting
interesting.
situation.
Though
Because
I
even
will,
here in Washington, I was just say with Ted Leonsis, he owns Monumental. He's buying or NBC Sports Washington, right, the regional sports network. But it makes you question. People said, well, can there be unbiased, Wizards coverage if he's
Right.
buying a network, right? So I think that's been a question here too. We've been dealing with in Washington, with that question. So I'll be very curious to see how the NFL handles it.
I will say that when it comes to NFL ownership, conflict of interest has kind of been very heavily involved, especially with Jerry Jones and the movement of teams and their his luxury company operating those new stadiums as we speak. So,
Yeah.
Definitely
That's a good
some
point.
Yeah, definitely some hands entering some pots they probably shouldn't have, right? So now, of course, every one of our football related guests, we have to ask before we let you go. We've talked a lot about the NFC. Maybe didn't hit the AFC as tough as we probably could, but if you had to make a Super Bowl prediction today, who do you have going to the Super Bowl?
It's so hard right now because as we talk about the NFC, all these, okay, I might get in trouble for this because they are the Eagles. I know how Washington feels about them. The NFC, they're long-time division rivalries, but I do like what Philadelphia is doing. And to me, they seem like right now just probably the most complete team, I'd say, in the NFC. But that's not to say, that things can't change, and especially when you're on top for so long. I think that's where they kind of got a wake-up call when Washington beat them. It can be tough, and especially the playoffs is just a different beast. And the AFC, I know everyone's talking about the Bills and stuff, but Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are just hard to count out. Travis Kelsey and what he's been able to do this season, and Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Self-explanatory. The defense might be the part you have a question about, but the Chiefs just somehow, some way, just always seem like they could be there. And this season, right? Maybe when you didn't think they would be, when you had maybe belief in Buffalo, here comes the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think I'm gonna have to put the Chiefs from the AFC.
Okay. Tough. Good picks though.
It's a tough one.
Can't disagree with either of those. I definitely am with you though. No betting against Patrick Mahomes at all.
Yeah, one thing
It's just
before
incredible.
you go, because I know this is getting out of NFL because this is a hot topic, especially in college, because especially with that whole Deion Sanders and I know you had some strong comments about it. I think I saw on your socials that your comments might have been made on the Ricky Smiley show in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about too, what was your whole thing going on with Deion Sanders? Now he's taking the Colorado, of course. I don't know, he kind of put his foot in his mouth with telling the players he's to step into the transfer portal and that. We played that video earlier too, so it's like, honestly.
Yeah. There's a lot here, and I'm going to see how I can say it, in the time frame and limit that I have. But I'll say this. So this issue was near and dear to my heart. One, because I grew up in SWAC football. My dad went to Grambling State University. The first posters in my room were Eddie Robinson and Doug Williams. That's literally folks how I got into sports. So the SWAC culture. And then also I spent my summers and my childhood growing up in Jackson, Mississippi. All of my aunts on my mother's side went to Jackson State University. So I grew up with Jackson State.
Definitely
athletics.
close to home, right?
Super close to the topic. So that's why I love talking on this. Deion Sanders, obviously we've all followed his career. What he did at Jackson State helped to make the SWAC more competitive, helped to make Jackson State more competitive. But this is what I've said. Jackson State athletics was there before Deion, and they'll be after Deion. Jackson State has Hall of Famers, folks, that program has produced. Now, did Deion help bring more light to that program? Yes. Right? Which is rightfully so. I mean, that's why you bring prime time to your football program. He's going to make stuff prime time. I mean, literally, he's his nickname, right? I mean, Coach Prime literally helped make that program prime. He helped bring players there, yes. But I don't know why anybody thought he would be there, for a long. When you're playing well, when you are a good coach, and this happens on all levels. If you've played sports, I'm sure more than likely you lost a coach to a better job, right? Because if you're good, people are going to come find you. Deion Sanders and what he did, helping to change the landscape, helping folks scratch their heads now, when they play Jackson State and when they look at HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, it was special. And Deion Sanders, we know he has high ambitions in coaching, so he was looking for an opportunity. Now, Jackson State gave him that first opportunity, but it wasn't the end-all opportunity. And I know people are saying, well, he promised, he said this was God ordained. I've been in locker rooms before myself and had been in locker rooms as a reporter. also said, I felt like God has brought me here. Remember, I'm Southern, folks. Church and football is what I grew up on.
Yep.
So I've heard many times
Yep.
that being used. But I think that's what you're supposed to say. Being a coach is a sales job. It's just like being a car salesman. Sometimes you buy a used car, they tell you all these good things, and you get home and it's a dud. But why? They're going to tell you all these great things, and not to say it's right, but coaching is a sales job. Teaching is all the time you have to get folks to what? Believe and buy into you. That's how you get players to play for you. So not saying that he shouldn't have said that, and obviously I know he's getting a lot of flack for that, but that's what coaches do. That's what coaches say in the locker room to help you buy on. But that's also not to say that doesn't mean God can't call him to another opportunity.
Right.
Right? I think in life, you get called. Like, to me, everything I've done, I'm walking, by faith, not by sight. And sometimes I'm getting called to opportunities that I don't know of. So I say this, if you get an opportunity with a much larger pay scale, but Deion is getting money anyways, and as he said, it's not worth it. Deion Sanders has money because he's Deion Sanders, right? But the pay scale is much higher, and you have a family, you're looking to build, economic generational wealth, something that's unfortunately not been a privilege to Black Americans in this country. You're trying to build generational wealth. You've created a blueprint at Jackson State that you're hoping to do at a struggling Colorado football program. And you get the opportunity to be that guy to make a turnaround there. Of course, he wasn't going to deny that. And I think folks are saying, he's leaving Jackson State, but he's donated to the facilities. He's donated to the community. When Jackson was having the water crisis, that is still going on. Yeah. Jackson State football players were handing out water bottles to residents. He made sure they still had a place to shower. Clean water, I think people forget, everything you use clean water for. So I think all this to say, and I'm passionate about it. I think Deion Sanders made the best decision for him. And guess what? In life, what everybody does, you make the best decision for you. If you're religious, you probably have a conversation between yourself and God. And I think who are we? I think you can be critical of it, but to really blaster this man, and I've been passionate about it because he's getting blasted to me more than Brett Favre has, and what Brett Favre did for Black folks.
We mentioned that earlier this show too.
Oh dear Lord.
That's been my problem. I think Brett Favre should still be top of headlines. If you're really following this, Brett Favre, he might not even go to jail for this. It might just be a minor kind of tap on the wrist for him. That's not right. That's not right. So to me, there's so many. And then Jackson's water prices. Once again, I mentioned it. Jackson, just today, there was an article saying, finally, yes, you can drink the water. This has been going on. If you remember Flint, Jackson is it's a reflection of Flint, Michigan, majority Black city. So I think there's so many other issues that we can be focused on. Deion Sanders should not be the most hated man right now in Jackson. Again, I'm somebody that grew up in HBCU culture. I come from HBCU culture, and even though I didn't go to an HBCU, growing up in the DMV area, and even now, I work closely with Howard. I'm at Howard University, still on my social media, speak to Howard students all the time. Work closely with Bowie State University. I've donated to HBCUs. I'm very involved in HBCUs. Again, grew up going to HBCU schools. With my parents and family members, and here in the DMV, it's unique because I've been able to go to Coppin, Morgan, Howard, like all the HBCUs in the area. He is doing no wrong, and he was able to do what Eddie George was not able to do yet. Right, at Tennessee State, what Hugh Jackson was not able to do yet at Grambling. Deion helped to pave the way, and I think Jackson State as an athletic department, you always have to be preparing for the future. It's always about passing the baton, just kind of like in life. None of us are going to live for a long time. That's why you give back. You pass the baton, you pass the torch, and hope the next person can carry on. But what I think Deion Sanders has actually done too now is former NFL players. And I talked to a lot of former NFL players. They now too see if they want to be a college coach, that the HBCU ranks can be a good pipeline. Right? That it can be a good launching pad for your career, which means you're getting more eyes on this program. You can still get good quality former players to your program. The athletic department now knows what it takes, the dollar amount that it takes. And now it's up to them to continue that. I think sometimes, we get so close to these sports figures and people we love that we feel that they're beholden to us. But to me, as a religious woman, you're beholden to nobody but God. And I think people have to remember that. So I say that to say, I think Deion Sanders is getting a lot of flack. I can see why people are hurt. When somebody's winning for you and, you see sold out Jackson State games, it's amazing. The program's getting more money. But he also has to do what's best for him. And life is about change and growth. And a lot of times in life, that's what happens. Things move on. But it doesn't mean that's going to change the identity of Jackson State. Now, will they have a harder time recruiting? Sure. But guess what? The transfer portal, I think, helps everybody right now. And I think if I'm recruiting at an HBCU, when I talk to young players, when they go to an HBCU and they see homecoming, they see people that look like them, they see their culture there, that is a recruiting point. There's been some pictures on social media. There's really nice athletic facilities at HBCU. Now, not at all. We know there's been underfunding. There's been systematic racism and barriers to that. But there are nice athletic facilities at some of these HBCU schools. You're learning your culture. There's other, former pro athletes, that have went to these schools. So there's still ways to recruit these guys. Again, I think the transfer portal right now, and especially if guys want to play, if you don't want to sit behind, look at what's happening to Alabama, right now. If you want to play, then maybe you will look at these schools. So I think the task now is upon people, and I just hope everybody that's yelling about this is also going to continue to support HBCUs, whether that be on social media talking about them, whether that be putting your money where it is. But just because Deion's leaving doesn't mean the program is leaving, folks. So I just want folks to do this. Breathe. All right? Stop being so angry and know that this program will continue to go on, and because they have a new challenge to tackle. I think that's it.
No, very, very well said. I definitely agree. I think that, the support has to extend beyond just the job that Deion Sanders was doing. And so hopefully those kids, at not only Jackson State, but at all these HBCU programs, can get somebody that was just as passionate as Deion and able to sustain those programs for a long time, man. So, Kelsey, this has been fantastic. We appreciate the time
Thank
very much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
I know we were able to cover a lot. So let the folks watching and listening, let them know where they can find you on social media.
Of course, and really quickly, one quick thing. This is why we have to be thankful for guys like the legend, the late great Eddie Robinson, and what he did for Grambling State University's program. Because coaches don't stay that long anymore.
No.
Why? Because there's so much money in collegiate coaching.
Yes.
That's why Eddie Robinson is somebody that every football fan should know. So I had to put that out there, folks. Obviously passionate about that topic. But everyone can follow me on social media, The Real K Nelson, my website, KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Facebook, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, LinkedIn. I love to connect with fans, always talking sports. Have a lot of great shows lined up as well on my podcast, Listen In with KNN. You can check that out at listeninwithknn.com. And again, just thank you so much, fellas, for having me. This was a blast. Football has been my first love, if you can't tell, and I always love talking the game.
Hey, no, well, the energy was definitely great, man. We'll have you on at some point here again in the future because this was an amazing time. So thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great time.
You
Bye.
too.
You too,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Nelson.
Great time with Miss Kelsey Nicole Nelson here on That's Football. Of course, here on the In the Zone Network, My City, My Music, Soldier by Blood Studios, my man Tweezy covering us on all of the production needs here. Thank you, sir. We got about 15 minutes left, maybe a little under.
I'm trying to get this box out of here.
Well, yeah, I don't. We sorry for those of y'all who've been watching this on YouTube, here on the My City, My Music YouTube channel. We of course have gone through a little bit of technical difficulties. Y'all stuck with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. I would go back into, kind of recapping NFL Week 13,
but Grambling State's probably not. They want to get back to that Celebration Bowl. It's been about 5 years.
Yeah, we got to get Grambling back into some primetime games, man. I know, again, Doug Williams was there before, Hugh Jackson, the coach now. We definitely need some quality football coming out of Grambling, man. And I mentioned this, and I don't want to belabor the point too much since we covered it at the beginning, but this is kind of what I mentioned about that HBCU tradition and that pride, right? They gonna be into the football. They gonna be into, the trash talk between schools. They gonna be into the bands. HBCU football is gonna be just fine. I think we have a lot broader range of things that we need to be looking at getting solutions to for HBCUs and those students that. Football is just kind of a minor issue at this point. We're going to get a coach for Jackson State. Deion, again, is going about his way, but Jackson State's going to be just fine. Those kids are going to be just fine. We just got to make sure that, again, that passion can remain there, even beyond when Deion's gone.
Yeah. So what were some other games that we didn't cover?
We do need to mention from Sunday 2 revenge-ish games. First one I'll go with because there's some relevant news that came out today from this game. Eagles beat the Titans 35-10. A.J. Brown getting his first game against the Titans since being traded to the Eagles this last offseason. The man went off, 8 catches, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 3 times as many yards as all Titans wide receivers with his 119. Jalen Hurts had another MVP caliber performance. 29-39, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, also ran for a score. But now the news that comes out today is that the Titans have fired GM John Robinson. I imagine because they were witnessing some Eagles fans in the crowd at Lincoln Financial Field basically telling him both thank you for trading them A.J. Brown, and then how could you be so stupid to trade us A.J. Brown at the same time.
First touchdown that was scored in that game for the Eagles was just too easy. If you saw that, like
Way too easy.
like here it is, jump into the end zone.
Oh yeah, way too easy, man. And we've talked about the Titans, a little bit where, these games against elite opponents, they typically have struggled with just because one, have not been able to put up the same amount of points, but also that defensive secondary kind of gets roasted a little bit at times for them. That definitely was the case on Sunday because not only did A.J. Brown go off, I believe Devontae Smith also had north of 100 yards and a touchdown. So Eagles offense is humming. They improve, to 11-1. They got the Giants coming up here in Week 14. Now the other, I mentioned revenge-ish game, Browns and Texans. Of course, Deshaun Watson's return to Houston. Texans, of course, could not get their revenge on Deshaun. They lost that game 27-14. However, Deshaun Watson didn't play that great.
Well, I wonder if it was because 10 of his accusers were in the stands.
Well, I think that could be the cause of it, but we think about it. We thought this was going to be like this plug and play. Deshaun's going to come back in, and the Browns are just going to be great. We discount the fact that man's been off. Away from football for 2 years, essentially. He did not play all of last year, even prior to these accusations coming out, and, of course, had not played the first 11 weeks of this season. So, showed some rust, 12 of 22, throwing the ball out there, 131 scoreless yards, and even throw an interception. The Browns' defense, though, defense and special teams, I should say, 3 touchdowns, punt return touchdown, fumble return touchdown, and an interception return for a TD. So the Browns defense picking up the slack for that offense a little bit.
Yeah, so
the other, kind of slightly major game from Sunday that I want to hit before we get into previewing some of these Week 14 games.
There's a few that I want to mention.
Vikings beat the Jets 27-22. The Vikings are now 9-0 this season in games decided by 8 points or less.
Yeah, and the Jets were doing.
They were right there. They were right there in the game,
Mike
man.
White is doing good, and Zach Wilson didn't even dress.
Hey, shout out to White Mike, man. White Mike is the man. And yes, I am calling him White Mike and not Mike White because, of course, again, for my Martin fans out there, y'all remember White Mike. He was the man.
Oh, it's
apparently,
been a while since I've seen Martin.
White Mike is the man in the New York Jets locker room right now. So, on to Week 14.
Can I mention a Thursday night game?
Yeah. Go, so I wanted to leave the Thursday night game to you specifically because this is the only game this week that fits our Tank Bowl criteria. Both teams with losing records.
Yeah, well, both records, but Raiders have been getting momentum.
Look, the stock is going up, man.
Like Tank Bowl maybe, but I might have to look at this again because I see maybe a better one for a Tank Bowl, though. I think 6 teams are having a bye this week.
Yes, so 6 teams on bye in Week 14, which those are Falcons, Saints, Commanders, Bears, Packers, and Colts.
A lot of the teams besides the Commanders and most of them those are the Tank Bowl participants.
Yeah, those are typically the teams we would think of as tanking. Commanders the only team of that group that has a winning record right now. So. Took away some of our Tank Bowl contenders that we usually would have.
So the Thursday night game on Prime Video.
Yep.
It's in Los Angeles with SoFi. But here's the thing. The Rams are playing who is actually the real LA team, the Raiders, in SoFi Stadium. And you know how the Raiders are when the Chargers come for the Chargers game in SoFi.
They're going to be at the Rams
game. This might even be worse.
They're going to be at the Rams game because, of course, even the Rams fans that are in LA have probably sold those tickets already.
Yeah, they're still trying to get
some of that money
Ownership
back.
is asking, please, Rams fans, if you're going to give it to charity for that Rams-Broncos game on Christmas. That whole Christmas schedule is where we'll discuss that in a few weeks.
That was gonna be tough.
The whole scheduling, like 3 on this day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like you've got I think 3 Christmas Day games, or I'm sorry, not 3 Christmas Day. You got 3 games
on Christmas Eve.
On Christmas Eve, you got the main slate on Christmas Day. It's all kind of jumbled around.
Yeah, a lot of Saturday games.
Yeah, a lot of Saturday games coming up. Raiders, real quick, we talked about them staying hot. They're now 5-7. Kind of overcoming some of those early season struggles. They really, they might have to win out, and it's probably asking a lot, but they aren't really out of the playoff hunt
No,
yet.
they're not. And according to the betting lines, Las Vegas is only a 6-point favorite. I think they might have a little bit more with that.
Well, so they're probably only giving them that 6 points because it's in LA, which they have to give the home team some respect.
Here's the thing,
but
too, that people are forgetting. Aaron Donald is still out.
yeah, Aaron Donald is out. Of course, Baker Mayfield, the Rams just claimed we don't know if he's going to play, so it's probably going to be Walford or Perkins at quarterback. Yeah, I don't see much life in this game for the Rams.
And, like, the best games I see, like, though the one game that I don't, like, Ashley Baker is probably going to have a field day on for the Battle of Texas with Cowboys and Texans.
Yeah, the Cowboys should probably, if they won 54-19 against the Colts.
If Texas win that game, oh, dear Lord.
Yeah, the Cowboys aren't going to hear the end of that one.
And then with the Titans, I don't know, when I saw them, they were some sloppiness.
Yeah, Titans have, of course, been a little bit sloppy here down the
They
stretch.
faced the Jaguars, and the Jaguars got clipped pretty good.
Well, and then you had Trevor Lawrence leave that game but come back with like a kind of weird injury. They definitely didn't look good at all against Detroit. They'll have that division game against the Titans. You've also got a division matchup with the Bills and Jets in the early window on Sunday, which is going to be a pretty good game.
Please let that be a St. Louis game.
Man,
we had the Jets the last 2 weeks. When does that seems like a CBS game? When is the
Probably, yeah.
Oh,
So,
the Chiefs game's at 3. There's a chance we might have that.
Hey, hopefully, because the Chiefs and Broncos is not the move.
No,
I'll tell you that much.
no. That's gonna. The Chiefs are angry. That's gonna be a bloodbath.
Now, one thing we do need to note with this Bills and Jets game, huge playoff implications coming out of that game.
Oh, yeah.
Bills definitely need to win if they want to have any shot at the 1 seed.
And the division.
Well, yeah, because not to mention they got to win against the Patriots last Thursday night. That was their first division win of the season. So they need to definitely get another one against the Jets. Jets on the other side of this need a win to not only potentially get them a chance at winning the division, but just to hold on to a potential playoff spot in general.
Yeah, the one game that I see that's going to be sloppy, and I mean sloppy, it's going to be the Ravens-Steelers game.
Yeah, so you're going to have Tyler Huntley in that game, no Lamar Jackson. We know for sure not looking likely for him this week and probably going to be a multi-week injury.
I haven't heard anything on Dobbins either.
Yeah, I don't think Dobbins is playing. Tyler Huntley's going to be back out there now. Of course, the Steelers, they've got some momentum going too. I kind of mentioned, and we didn't get to talk about their win against the Falcons on Sunday, but they are now 5-7. Still an outside chance. They got 5 games left. They would have to go 4-1. Still an outside chance they can save Mike Tomlin's 500 or better record going into the end of the season. So
now the one game that we'll see what happens here, because it's a division game, but with divisions you never know. And with the Lions, with their momentum, do you see them pulling a victory over the Vikings of how the momentum is for Detroit?
Well, so one, even without the momentum, I feel like Detroit and Minnesota, they always play close games, especially at least recent years since Minnesota has had Kirk Cousins. I think the Lions can win. It's in Detroit. Their offense has been humming. Defense has actually played a lot better in recent weeks. And Minnesota, at some point, we mentioned they're 9-0 in these basically one-score games. At some point, they got to lose one of these close ones. Yeah. They're not going to go 15-2, I don't believe. And this might be one of the ones that just turns out to be a scheduled loss, and the Lions get to keep their good fortune going.
Was this Sunday night game flexed in?
It was. It was initially, when the schedules first came out, it was Broncos and Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. But as you and I have both mentioned on this show many times, we don't need to see any more Broncos football on primetime.
Yeah, because now, is this really that better? Dolphins and Chargers?
Well,
Dolphins, yes. Chargers, and
so the thing with the Chargers is you can get away with putting the Chargers on primetime because whether they win or lose, it's probably going to be entertaining to see. They're probably going to blow a lead of some sort, or they're probably going to look like they're coming back only to fail at the comeback at the end. And you also got a little bit of storyline in this game, which, one, both of these teams are trying to, fight for playoff positioning. But if we remember a couple years back, Joe Burrow got drafted number 1 quarterback in that draft. But the Dolphins had the choice to take Tua or Justin Herbert. They took Tua. Justin Herbert fell to the Chargers, and there you have it. I would not be surprised if coming out of this game the talk is that they chose the wrong dude.
Yeah.
I could see Justin Herbert carving them up on Sunday night.
Yeah, the thing now when we're talking about tank bowls, I look at the Monday night game. That looks more of a tank bowl than a Thursday night.
Well, yeah,
game.
because the Patriots are definitely going in the wrong direction now. They're 6-6, but they are kind of falling off the wagon a little bit.
And the Cardinals are 4-8, but ESPN only has New England as, you know how much as a favorite?
How much? 1 point?
Yeah,
Where's this game at?
at Arizona.
Look, I'm just gonna let y'all know now. I might have to make that drive over to Illinois as soon as the show ends because a 1 point line on that game. Like now, granted, I say that the one thing that we've seen the Patriots struggle with, not just this year but in previous years as well under Bill Belichick, running quarterbacks typically give them some trouble. Mm-hmm. Cardinals also coming out of their bye week, they're probably a little extra preparation or a little bit extra prepared for a game like this, especially being at home. Could end up being close. Me personally, Bill Belichick greater than Cliff Kingsbury. That's all I need to see.
Yeah.
That's all I need to see.
And then probably the games of the week, of course, is I would expect this would be the Fox game, Eagles and Giants.
That's probably going to be, early Fox game. And then a game that would have been great had Jimmy G not got hurt. You got Bucks and 49ers in that late window, which could have been a doozy for us.
So with the Bucks, how they play, dear God.
Yeah, and I mean, not saying like the Bucks are great, but it's two playoff teams.
The one that's very questionable, because I don't know, like, I'm expecting Seattle to beat Carolina, just that.
You would think so, but Seattle also dealing with the injury to Kenneth Walker, the rookie running back.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. But I looked at this slate, first time in a while where we don't have, at least on Sunday, any games with both teams with losing records. So it'll be an interesting Sunday, especially with playoff picture and teams, fighting for that position or trying to get back in the playoff picture.
Is this the bye week with the most teams? Because 6 is a lot.
Well, so there was a week earlier this year, I want to say either week 7 or 8, that also had 6 teams.
This one is more seeable with the buys than anything.
Yeah, but I don't understand why we have 6 teams on bye this week, but we only had 2 last week. It seems like it would make more sense to have those numbers flip-flop. Could be wrong, though.
I don't know. I definitely see Miss Nelson and Miss Baker looking dead eyes at that Eagles and Giants game. Really good.
Yeah. The week after. Yeah, that's going to be a huge one, man. So,
Bronco fans.
Cover your eyes. just cover your eyes. Hope it ends soon.
Jaguars fans, I think you're going to get the same thing. And the Battle of Ohio, for the love of God, Cincinnati, please win.
Yeah, Cincinnati got Cleveland, and that's a must-win game for Cleveland.
And it's at Cincinnati, so
that's a must-win game for Cleveland if they want any shot at the playoffs. Yeah. So, Deshaun Watson, get it together soon, buddy, because if you come out here and don't play well, it's going to be more sounds that you hear, and it's not going to be any accusers. It's going to be folks that's a little pissed off that they gave up so much to get you after everything that went on.
Yeah, so that will do it for tonight's edition of That's Football. We'll be here next week. We actually going to have, as far as I know, 2 guests.
So we got a couple good guests lined up for next week. We're picking up some momentum here on That's Football, man. So, of course, getting into the nitty-gritty, crunch time here, NFL season, and, of course, college football bowl season. And obviously, we'll get some more football news across all levels here at some point in the near future. But until next week, my man Will Freeman, Josh Price, That's Football.